this thing on? I think it's on. Just want to check to make sure. I do apologize in advance that this is going to screw up the VOD. But yeah, okay, it is on. Said I couldn't connect to the server for a second. So, hey guys, I do apologize for quote unquote spamming you guys with videos. This is the second video in 2 days. And I also understand that because it's unedited content, because this video is likely to be, maybe even 10 minutes, it will seem pretty, it will actually seem a lot more spammy to people than if it was like some other YouTuber actually making quality videos, cough cough. But I wanted to just kind of put my thoughts out there on Broodmother in a vacuum. Um, Obviously related to her quote unquote rework coming up here in 7.07, which we can expect to drop tomorrow, maybe even later on tonight, for people like me who are in Central Time Zone. Uh, I just want to get these thoughts out here in somewhat of a vacuum because a lot of people have been asking for them, even though I did do a patch analysis video. I even put the timestamp of the brood changes. I kind of want to put these out here because admittedly they are a tad bit different than what they were in this video. This was more of a first impressions video. Um, it was the first time that I had seen the changes, and I didn't really allow my mind to marinate with the ideas too much. To be abundantly clear, I have not downloaded the test client, just so that nobody can come out here and say something like, "Oh, well, have you played it on the test client?" Or not that that's an insult. I'm just saying that I just want to be abundantly clear that I haven't actually done that. So I guess I do apologize in advance for people that are curious as to what my thoughts are. I really don't want to spoil myself, if that makes any sense, with the test client too much. And what I mean by that is I have no doubt that these changes will get nerfed. This is way too overpowered. Having just purely theory crafted about this, and you might be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You can't just theory craft about something and say it's overpowered. You got to play it. You got to get in the game and play it. Well, I have talked to a few people who have also played this on the test client. Most notably my brood friends, and we're all kind of in agreement here that this is just bonkers. Okay, so to get everybody up to speed, just in case you missed me talking about Broodmother in my previous patch analysis because it was too long for whatever reason, um, and you didn't want to skip ahead to the timestamp. Broodmother got, again, quote unquote, reworked. Um, Starting with the top here, we got spin webs no longer grants any invisibility whatsoever. This means that uh, not only are you like just visible on webs all the time, but also your spiders, as in your spiderlings and your spiderites are just visible. You can be seen when you are walking around on webs. And I guess we'll go point by point here, just because I know a lot of people want me to just divulge every single little uh, uh, thing that they did with her and whatnot. So this alone is obviously a nerf. It's Brood was very strong as a result of the way that she interacted with supports, and specifically on the enemy team, and how she starved them of a lot of gold early, mid, and late game because she was essentially permanently invisible if she was on her webs, which meant that as a barrier of entry to killing her, you had to have detection. You pretty much had to have detection. Unless the brood player made significant mistakes and died to just random AoE, you had to have detection when you were trying to kill Broodmother, and that was a big deal. That it goes without saying that spending money on things in Dota 2 has its cost, has its weight in gold. Um, and even if you do get the kill, it's worth less than if you were to kill something that you didn't have to spend dust or sentries on. Uh, for the sheer nature of the fact that you didn't have to spend that gold on those things. I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but I just really want to hammer in the idea that this is obviously a nerf, okay? But it's a nerf that they supplemented with a buff that overall makes the hero maybe, I don't want to say less gimmicky, because admittedly there are a lot of benefits to being invisible that she can no longer, I guess, feel, okay? But going to the next point, they removed any sort of, I guess, counterplay to her free pathing and speed buff, which in and of itself, right, if we just look at that change alone, was like the hugest thing that was holding her back, right? Um, it, Brood has always been a hero that has to play around the fact that, like, when she goes in, she can get kited very easily because I mean, she is a little bit quicker than most heroes, but it's not by such a significant margin that she can dart in, right? Get slowed once and still keep on you, right? She doesn't really build items that, you know, just because she can't really afford to. She can't really afford to build items that help her out too much in the department of not getting kited. It's very difficult for Brood to fit Force Staff into her build. Same thing with Blink Dagger, right? And she's not a traditional offline initiator. And when I say traditional offline initiator, well, I literally mean just that. Like, look at most offliners, right? You see heroes such as Brewmaster, who is a hero that I play a lot myself, but more often than not, this patch you'll see like Batrider, you'll see Earthshaker, some Centaur maybe, some Pit Lord or whatever. You'll see heroes that are kind of frontline initiation oriented heroes that don't dive into the realm of items like Radiance too much, or more carry based items. Brood is not that hero. That is not what that's not what Brood can do. Brood can quote unquote initiate a fight, and I've talked about this before. Running into a fight, right clicking the supports, killing them in 2 shots, and BKBing so the enemy has to deal with you in a significant way is quote unquote initiation, right? And Brood can do that, but it's finicky and it's definitely not a huge ground pound initiation that you would expect out of some other heroes, okay? I would also expect to see the fact that they removed her invisibility to dampen, if that makes sense, her ability to quote unquote initiate fights even further because you lose a lot of your surprise factor. So, to be abundantly clear, between the two of these changes alone, I definitely say that Brood got buffed because this was a huge weight removal right here, the second point off of the hero's shoulders. But it is important to know the aspects in which this change nerf her, and they make her worse at doing something that she was already kind of bad at doing, which is initiating, quote unquote. And it also makes her kind of now bad at doing something that she was previously good at, which was starving supports of gold. Now the support doesn't need any gold item to do anything against you. That being said, they can't do at that much against you. Like, Dust was a catch-22 item against you. You hated it when people bought Dust, and sometimes when people bought Dust, you just prefer to not be on your webs at all because at least you didn't get slowed. If you were auto-attacked at level 1 and you were on your webs and you were dusted, right? If somebody auto-attacked you, so they took away your free speed, your free movement speed and pathing buff or whatever, you'd just prefer to kill the web right then and there because the movement speed bonus at 20% isn't enough to outweigh the dust penalty, and you're moving slower than if you were off webs, as weird as that sounds. So it does remove a huge limiting factor of the hero, but at the same time, she can't starve supports as much unless you're killing them in lane. And my prediction is, come this patch, we will see a very big more, I was gonna say a very big emphasis, more so than last patch, on defensive tri lanes, as I was talking about actually with a friend of mine in a video podcast that we did with Esports Money's Mac 10, whatever you want to call him. I do think that this patch will be officially the patch where defensive tri lanes start to crop up a lot more. It'll be the axe to roam supports. Okay, we'll be guaranteeing your safe lane tri lane their free farm. And that is something that Brood will have to now deal with a lot more often, whereas she previously didn't have to. That being said, if you can overcome that difficulty of that defensive tri-lane and Brood's new tools that we'll get into down here, I did want to talk about Brood in a vacuum, but I've kind of already spoiled that conversation by talking about what I'm talking about right now. But I'll talk about it anyways because it is important, right? Is the changes to how deny mechanics work, with denying a creep now literally gives the enemy nothing. It's like 25% experience. That's crazy low. That's the lowest it's ever been. That's even lower than before they changed denies to give you EXP. Like back when denies gave 50% EXP and didn't give you anything at all as the denier, it's even lower than then, right? It's 25%, which is half of that. And you still get 25% of the EXP of the denied creep. Like, denying is so important in this upcoming patch, right? And so henceforth, guaranteeing a safe lane, tri-lanes farm is that much more detrimental to the enemy. And I think roaming might see a huge hit because of it, right? Brood's gonna have to deal with some tri-lanes that she's never had to deal with before. Um, or that maybe she has had to deal with, but it was way, way long ago, and this new patch is going to bring more obstacles for Brood specifically, but also, you know, every tri-laner as well. But I say Brood specifically because she doesn't have the crutch of her invisibility to lean on, which will become a difficult thing to work around for sure. And when I say the crutch, I want to be abundantly clear. That crutch wasn't like this huge support mechanism. It wasn't like this stalwart pillar that stood on its own and lifted Broodmother's 8 legs up and into the ground sky high. Okay, the crutch of invisibility is always a double-edged sword because you know as the invisibility user that it doesn't take much for them to take this away from you. Okay, this hurts, but it hurts in a way that, in my opinion, I said this before, and I do hate to say it because it kind of sounds bad from like a gameplay design standpoint, but I'll say it anyways. It makes the hero less gimmicky, and I think I like this change overall as a result. Then we move into this change, which is pretty much directly to counteract, I think, this change. I predict this. I think I said it at the start. I do think Brood's too overpowered in this current state. I think this will get nerfed a little bit more. I think your base movement speed as Broodmother needs to really suck to compensate for this change, because being 270 movement speed off your webs does suck for sure. You're the slowest hero in the game, tied with techies, but you permanently gain 40% movement speed at level 1, right? And that scales up to like 80%. 270 movement speed, you know, times 0.4 is like an extra 130 or something like that. Not 130. It just take like 270 or calculator. I think I'm doing this right because it gives a 40% movement speed bonus at level 1 times 0.4. You get 108 extra movement speed, you know, so 270. I could do this math in my head too. Kappa 270 or 378 movement speed at level 1, right? With the 270 movement speed, and they can't remove that in any way. So even though this looks like oh my god, what a big nerf, it's not actually like, it's a nerf for sure, but it's not that big of a deal because you permanently have this movement speed. They can't take this away from you, you know? They can't hit you once and like just keep it off of you forever. So yeah, getting into the Spiderling changes, we kind of have to talk about all of them, and I mean all of them. Notice how I'm including this change too. We have to talk about all of them in one go. So let's do that. Spiderling HP on both of the spiders, the Spiderlings and the Spiderites, got reduced by a little under half of what their original HP values were. To compensate for that, they gave them a crap ton of defensive stats, right? 450 to 250 HP, 175 to 100, but all spiders now have 50% magic resistance, and all spiders now have 8 armor. 8 increased armor. I think they only ever had 0 armor anyways, so when it says 8 increased armor, doesn't actually mean that much. Let me just make sure, though, because I've been wrong once or twice in my life before. Oh my god. Armor 8. It shows 8 now, but there's no way they now have 8 armor. So I think this is just, yeah, is this 0? No, that's the webs. I know spiders don't have 8 armor. Yeah, and they definitely don't have 50. So they're trying to. Somebody came into the patch, the page here, and they're already changing it, as you can tell. Even though the patch hasn't dropped, I don't know why people do this. People are getting too ahead of themselves. But anyways, yeah, they never had armor beforehand. So now spiders have 8 armor and 50% MR. This is a bunch of defensive stats. They obviously took away some HP to compensate for that. They gave them some base HP regen. You have to keep in mind this also interacts with the HP regen provided by the webs. And it's not hard to see that this is a buff. Okay, so this is a buff from a purely statistical analysis, right? They took away less than half of their HP pools, but they gave them more or equal to half defensive stats to compensate. A lot of people say, oh, if you're at 100 HP and I give you 100 HP and you're at 200 HP now, you just gained 50% all resistance. That's like a way to look at things. Is HP is universal. Having more HP just makes you more resistant. By sheer nature of it, takes more hits to kill you. And HP is like the best stat that you can give people, right? And that's true for the most part. I'm not going to sit here and split hairs. Like, that's definitely a truthful statement. Losing HP does kind of, like, suck, especially if you're not compensated like this, although we did get compensated like this. You could still argue that pure damage is now the meme against spiders, and I wouldn't disagree with you. Pure damage will kill spiders very easily. So I'm trying to think of all the sources of AoE pure damage here. I'm not really coming up with too many answers, but they do exist out there, and they will cuck, brood spiders a lot easier than they used to. But if you're dealing with anything besides pure damage, this is a buff, right? And it's a buff for more reasons than just the fact that the numbers work out such that this is less than a 50% cut on your HP, but this is a flat 50% magic resistance buff, and 8 armor from 0 is more, I think, or equal to 50% damage reduction. I haven't checked into the armor values, and now the new armor values make it even more difficult to check into that. But I do believe that this is an outright buff in and of itself. But then you also take into account the HP regen that spiders now get by default, in addition to the fact that your webs also give HP regen, and it's not too hard to view this as a playstyle change, right? Or just an outright buff, which is you go in with your spiders, right? You go in, you bait out the nukes, you do some damage or whatever, then you draw them back, right? You draw your spiders back. Then they start regenerating HP. They have less HP to fill in the cup, right? They don't have to heal 450 HP now because they now only have to heal 250 HP. They get more HP regen, and then also just the webs naturally give HP regen such that the HP regen that your webs give and your spiders naturally have is enough to just make them like walk around with like mini hearts, right? Mini heart of Tarrasques. Like they just walk around now, and their effective HP is so high that if your opponents can't kill them outright, they're just gonna be gaining health like rapidly. Like it's gonna seem like that anyways, because their overall HP pool is smaller. Like I said, they now gain more HP. The HP that's necessary to fill their HP up to full is a lot lower. And their overall resistance to all damage types has increased, except for pure damage. It's not hard to see this as a buff when you view it that way, and I do think that is the way that we should be viewing this. I think that's what Valve intended was not Valve, but Ice Frog, whatever, wanted to make it so that the spiders were they had their own like versatile set of gameplay where if you can play with them correctly and bait out nukes with them, you can get rewarded by wasting enemy resources and mana, and then you can go in quicker, right? That's the big thing. The big thing is you can now bait out nukes and go in quicker with them, knowing that you have a little bit more survivability and, more importantly, a lot more versatility in how you play with them. The last change, before we get into the talents anyways, is the spin web charges increase. A lot of people are confused about this, and I'll dispel all the myths right now. This merely affects the amount of charges that you can hold as the hero. This is not to compensate for the takeaway of the +8 webs talent. A lot of people don't understand what that means, so I guess I'll explain it like as though you guys were 5-year-olds. They took away the +8 max webs talent, which was a talent that let you have 16 webs on the map in total. That was on the map. That means, in total on the map you can have 16 webs, and every time you place a web after that it will replace it. Kind of like if you had 8 webs, and that was a level 25 talent. Now that talent does not exist anymore, and there's no talent actually that exists that interacts with your webs in any way. Now what happens is you just have your normal 8 max webs, and you can gain charges similar to Earth Spirit Remnants all the way up to 8 webs in your thorax, if you want to call it that, or whatever the fuck, because she's a spider, so she's got a thorax, and that's where she contains all of her silk. Basically, they front-loaded her a bunch of silk. You can put that shit all in your pockets or your thorax, and whenever you want to just go take over another lane or something like that, you can just go place 8 webs for free, so long as you have the mana. I do think that this will affect her, by the way, in the mana department, because your immediate mana demands potentially could be a lot higher, right? If you're trying to like go push an entire another lane and you saved up all these charges, you're gonna need like 400 mana, because spin webs cost 50 mana per pop. You're gonna need like 400 mana to go pop all these webs down, so that it will affect your mana in some way, shape, or form. But I think overall this is a definite buff. If you've ever played Brood, have every intention, like your webs are currently fine. You're playing Brood, you've got your current web layout is fine, and you have 4 max web charges. This is a definite buff because you can just accrue more webs over time. You don't really need to worry about the amount of webs that you're accruing slowing you down in any way. And I didn't really explain that well. Basically what I mean is sitting there with your 4 max webs, it's often the case where in the mid game you're just sitting there with pretty much perfect web control. I'm having a hard time explaining this. Brood often finds herself in the scenario where she wants to buy a lot of time for her team while she gets her core items before she goes and fights. In those scenarios, your webs are typically fine. You don't need to move them around too much. In those scenarios, you'll have a lot of time to accrue your max web charges up. Previously, the max web charges was 4. Now it's going to be 8. In those scenarios, when you've finally bought all the time that you need for your team, you'll now be able to fully lay out all the webs that you want to when you've bought enough time for your team and you're ready to go fight. Whereas previously you could only lay out 4, which was an inhibiting factor. That is one of many reasons why I think this is a buff, and overall this is definitely a welcome change. This one right here, this last one. Then we'll go into her talent tree, which it's hard to say whether or not this overall got nerfed or buffed. Brood's previous talent tree was like one of the best in the game, and some of these values did get nerfed, so we'll view it with that lens. First, you now have to pick between two kind of shitty talents. I'm not gonna say that level 10 plus 200 HP is the worst talent in the game. It's more so one of the best, but I really liked almost getting 400 HP at level 15. I don't know though. This is 200 HP at level 10, and it's better than a lot of talents out there for HP. And we need look no further than, I guess Brew has a plus 200 HP talent too. Damn, all these plus 200 HP talents at level 10. All 2 of them, Keppa. I know that there's some heroes that have like plus 125 HP, which is so shit. There's 175 for AM. I don't know. There used to be, I guess, because now it's kind of hard to find it. There used to be a lot of heroes that have like plus 125 HP. Invoker, didn't he used to have like a really shitty HP talent? No, he doesn't anymore. I guess they removed him. I don't know. But plus 200 HP at level 10 is definitely not bad. Plus 60 spy on the Spiderling damage is looking a lot more appealing because it doesn't have to compete with an EXP talent, which is really good, at least at level 10. The EXP talent at level 10 was really good, especially given how more important all your other talents were. And as a quick side note, because I still have an EXP talent, I think they might have nerfed her talent tree as a result of that. The new talent tree kind of feels like a bit of a nerf, I will say that. That being said, you can get health and CDR together. CDR means a lot more on this hero now, I would argue, because of the spin web changes. You are going to have to be placing more webs over time. You can't just because you're going to have to store them all up and place them as though you can only ever have 8 webs at a time. You can't ever have 16 webs out on the field. So CDR is meaning a lot more on the hero is what I'm thinking. I could be wrong. It could still be the 35% EXP talent, but CDR was only ever like a hard talent to pick because it had to compete with such a juicy HP talent. You guys know me. I loved the CDR talent, and I took it for a very long period of time in 7.06. Even before I thought. It took me a lot of time playing Brood to finally realize that the HP talent was better. But now that it doesn't have to compete with an HP talent and it has to compete with a slightly juicy talent of EXP of 35%, I'd say 35% EXP at level 15 is a lot worse than level 10 at 25%. I think you're probably going to skip this and just take the raw 20% CDR because CDR's it's such a good talent, man. Level 20, they kept her attack speed talent, but they pegged it down 10 by 10 attack speed. Just a straight up nerf. That sucks. They buffed the spider attack damage by a significant amount. And if it was just this, if this was the only change that they made to this talent, I'd still say it's garbage. When you compare it to the fact that, not compare it, but when you combine it with the fact that they buff spiders significantly in their overall survivability, especially with the resistances, and when you also look at this talent right here, it looks a little juicy. I'm not gonna lie, okay? I don't actually know if this is a bad way of playing Brood now. My immediate reaction is, duh, it's a terrible way of playing. Just take the attack speed talent, the insatiable hunger damage at 25, which is a huge buff. Like, this is like two skill points in one. Because if we look at Broodmother, and you look at her insatiable hunger values, yeah, they go up by 40 damage per level in both the damage and the lifesteal. This is 75. This is almost 2 extra levels in insatiable hunger that you're getting with that talent. It's really hard to turn this down, but at the same time, I don't know, like, these are, with the new spiders, like, these are actually considerable talents, at least just from first glance. I don't know, playing around with them might prove otherwise. These might be shit talents, but the spiders, I mean, Spiderlings can start doing like 48 damage or 42 damage to heroes with this change right here alone. And you can spawn a lot of them. 48 damage spiders might be good. And they're definitely good for farming. I will say that. That is one thing that I've always liked about the spider attack damage talent is your spiders start ripping up the jungle. And they're amazing at pushing waves as well. So, I don't know. You might start skipping this talent just for the farm values of this. But it's hard to say for sure. But definitely at level 25, I don't know. I feel like this is too good of a talent to pass up. If the spider playstyle comes to fruition, maybe we'll do this. But overall, I do think this is too good of a talent. But either way, that's pretty much that's Broodmother in a nutshell in 7.07. Is the outright changes themselves, not every single one of them, but the changes that were like not correlated to her talent tree, I think overall were a buff, made her a lot less gimmicky, made her a lot less reliant on being invisible, which comes with its own benefits and subtractions, but definitely overall I think it's a benefit to her significantly. Kind of for no reason too. I don't think she needed this buff at all. She was fine last patch, but she will probably get nerfed, and I'd expect substantial nerfs. I don't. This will be the patch where at the start, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I'll probably get 6K again. I'll probably go above and beyond that. We'll see just how bad the offlane is. But Brood looks really strong right now, and the offlane isn't looking too bad if you can actually like survive in it, which Brood's never had a problem doing before. This kind of hurts her doing that, but only by a little bit. I don't know. Expect people to start Quelling Blade and to cut all your trees down, because that's one way that you can kind of counterplay the spin web change, but only a little bit, man, because you still get the free speed. Um, but yeah, I think overall, I don't know. It's hard for me to give a TLDR on these changes, but overall, I like these changes from the perspective of somebody who likes Broodmother, but at the same time, it's bittersweet because I feel like she's just got to get nerfed. This is way too strong. Her talent tree, I'm also bittersweet about it. I do like that you can start taking the CDR talent. I don't know, 35% EXP gain at level 15 just doesn't feel good enough when it pales in comparison to the fact that it was 10% less at level 10, which was so good. Like getting at this level, even at a 10% less, was just so good. And it competes with the CDR talent, right? It's not competing with some shitty spawn spiderling damage talent, which I used to say was good. It's competing with a good talent. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel like she's definitely in line for some nerfs here. She'll be broken as fuck. I can't help but shake that feeling. And yeah, enjoy her while you can. This is Wire Guitars, I guess, talking about Broodmother 7.07. So I hope you had a good time. Thank you very much.